How can a 9-year-old girl make a 911 call and simply vanish as if she never existed? How can an emergency dispatch logged under code 1107 be ignored for almost 2 decades? And why is someone now trying to erase every trace of that night? It was November 14, 2005. The clock read 2:47 a.m. when a 911 operator received a barely audible call. The voice was fragile, childlike, terrified. "My name is Maya. He came into the house. My mom. There's blood." The line went dead. Code 1107 was logged as disconnected call, child at risk, unstable location. The address? An old apartment building in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. But no unit was dispatched. No patrol. No report. The next day, nothing in the news. It was as if Maya had never cried for help. Years later, in 2024, a records department intern stumbled across the recording in a misfiled folder. When he tried to look up the case, the system crashed, and the file vanished. That intern was Jordan, a computer science student. Intrigued, he backed up the audio before it disappeared and became obsessed with Maya's voice. Who was she? What happened that night? And above all, why was it never investigated? What Jordan didn't expect was that by digging into the past, he'd soon find himself being watched too. Jordan knew he shouldn't have copied the audio. The emergency department's record system was restricted, monitored, and any out-of-pattern access could trigger a warning or worse. But the girl's voice echoed in his mind like a plea that had never been heard. He converted the file to MP3 and analyzed the sound spectrum. At a certain point, between the girl's trembling breath and the line dropping, there was a strange sound, a series of metallic clicks, like someone forcing a doorknob or loading a weapon. Jordan took the audio to a former NYU sound engineering professor. The man listened in silence and finally said, "That's not normal interference. It sounds like an embedded signal. Maybe even intentional." A signal? Encoded? Why would anyone embed a deliberate noise in a 911 call recording? Later that night, Jordan accessed the 2005 call logs. He searched for the originating number of Maya's call. Nothing. No carrier listed it. It was as if the call came from nowhere. Then he checked the address given in the call. The building still stood, 1236 Gates Avenue, Brooklyn, but something felt wrong. According to renovation records, apartment 3B, the one mentioned in the call, had suffered a fire 2 days after the call was logged. Official cause? Electrical accident. From that moment on, Jordan understood that the silence surrounding Maya was no accident. The question now was, who wanted this case to stay buried? The next day, Jordan went to Gates Avenue. The building was one of those old 3-story blocks with weathered bricks and windows fogged by time. No security cameras, no visible superintendent, just silence and the scent of decay. He pretended to be looking for an apartment and spoke with an elderly woman on the ground floor. When he mentioned 3B, her face changed. "You don't want to go up there, dear. That apartment, it stayed empty for a long time. Sometimes the lights turn on by themselves, and at night, there are noises." "Who lived there before?" Jordan asked. She hesitated. "A woman and a little girl. They never spoke to anyone. disappeared suddenly. Then came the fire. Jordan climbed to the third floor. The door to 3B was sealed with faded red paint. Burn marks scarred the frame. The air smelled of old wood. On the floor, something caught his eye under a layer of dust, a small pink plastic bunny button. He picked it up. That night, scanning the button with a portable RFID reader, Jordan detected an embedded chip, something that shouldn't be inside a child's clothing button. When he connected the scanner to his computer, a string of numbers appeared. Then a cryptic message. If you found this, don't stop. They're close. Who left it there? Maya? Her mother? Or someone trying to guide him or deceive him? Jordan now understood the case wasn't just buried. It was protected. But by whom? Jordan spent the night trying to decipher the sequence of numbers displayed by the scanner. 20 digits, no clear pattern. He tried converting them to coordinates, dates, simple ciphers. Nothing made sense. Then he started looking into internal codes used by the 911 system in the early 2000s. That's when he found it, an old table of deprecated protocols, decommissioned in 2006. One entry stood out. 1107, intercepted call, priority denied. Priority denied? Code 1107 wasn't just a note. It was a classified designation, used when calls were intentionally ignored by higher order. That meant someone, in 2005, had chosen not to send help for Maya. But why? Jordan cross-referenced other calls marked 1107. To his shock, he found 5 more cases in Brooklyn between 2003 and 2006, all involving children, none dispatched, all quietly archived. One call from 2004 said, "He's in the basement. I'm scared." And another from 2006, "They took my sister. She won't wake up." The voices were different, but the pattern was the same. All calls came from sensitive areas, abandoned buildings, low-income housing, media blind zones. This wasn't negligence. It was a system. And what if Maya was just one of many silenced cases? Jordan decided to compare the other 1107 call audios with Maya's. Using AI software, he mapped vocal patterns to identify similarities. In one call from 2004, the child's voice was slightly deeper, but there was something familiar. After hours of analysis, the software delivered a disturbing result, an 87% probability that the voices belonged to the same child. Impossible! How could Maya have made 2 calls nearly 2 years apart? Unless she hadn't disappeared immediately. Unless she was still alive after 2005. But if so, where was she now? The next morning, Jordan received an anonymous phone call, a muffled male voice. "Stop digging into the wrong files. You don't understand what you're opening." Before he could answer, the call disconnected. Minutes later, Jordan realized his computer was under attack. Files were corrupted, backups erased. Only one audio file remained, the original from Maya. The recording, which he had listened to dozens of times, now seemed different. In the background, almost imperceptible, there was something he'd never noticed before. A child's humming. Soft, repetitive, like a lullaby. Jordan isolated the sound. A phrase was whispered over and over. "I won't sleep. I won't sleep." Cold, hypnotic, like a mantra. This wasn't just a distress call. It was a living record of trauma, or a plea still echoing in time. And maybe, Maya was still waiting to be heard. Jordan didn't sleep that night. Maya's voice seemed to cling to the walls, the lullaby, the phrase, "I won't sleep." But who would teach a child to repeat something like that? Was it a protest or a command? He returned to the Gates Avenue building. He needed to understand the place, feel it. In daylight, the building seemed less menacing. But as he reached the third floor, he froze. A man stood on the stairwell, directly in front of 3B. Tall, thin, wearing a worn gray suit and dark hat. He was still, facing away. Jordan called out, "Excuse me?" The man slowly turned, but his face was covered with a dark surgical mask. His eyes, cold, expressionless. Without a word, he calmly walked down the stairs and exited the front door. Jordan followed, but by the time he reached the street, the man was gone. Back at his apartment, Jordan tried something risky. He uploaded a snippet of Maya's recording to a secret forum for former emergency responders. In his post, he asked, "Has anyone ever seen this? Code 1107. 3 hours later, he got a private message. "Not here, but I saw something similar when I worked in Detroit. Same setup, same code, same result. No survivors. There's something you need to hear, but not online. Meet me in Red Hook, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Jordan knew it could be a trap, but it was also the first real lead. Someone willing to talk. And maybe Maya's death wasn't an isolated case. It was part of a nationwide pattern. On Wednesday, exactly at 9 p.m., Jordan stood in Red Hook, in a quiet, almost deserted dockside area. The meeting point was an old graffiti-covered warehouse surrounded by rusted shipping containers. He kept his phone in his pocket, recording everything. At 9:07, an old black Crown Victoria pulled up across the street. A man stepped out wearing jeans, a dark jacket, and a low baseball cap. He walked slowly toward Jordan. "You the kid with the audio?" "Yes, you worked in Detroit." "Yeah, but what you found, it's not just Detroit, not just New York." The man handed him a worn, crumpled brown envelope. Inside were copies of emergency call reports from 1998 to 2007. All involving children, all unanswered, all marked with code 1107. Each city had its own shadow screening unit, agents assigned to ignore specific calls. Their name changes. I've heard Sector E, Operation Lotus, Control 6, but the job's the same. Silence what can't be made public. Jordan flipped through the pages in shock. On one of the documents, Maya's 2005 call, a handwritten note stood out. "Call is genuine. Signal compromised. Monitoring in progress." Signal compromised? The man nodded. They weren't trying to save Maya. They were waiting for her. But why? Because she was like the others, like those who see too much, feel too much. Kids who hear what no one should hear. Jordan's throat tightened. This wasn't system failure. It was a machine of silence. That same night, back at his apartment, Jordan couldn't stop thinking about the man's last words. Kids who hear what no one should hear. He reanalyzed Maya's recording, this time using high-grade audio equipment. He ran a high-resolution spectrogram to isolate frequencies above human hearing, and found something. A band above 20,000 hertz, nearly undetectable, carried an irregular, pulsing signal. Jordan applied a modulation filter and converted the audio into a visual graph. The result was unbelievable. A series of symbols resembling ancient script, like hieroglyphs or tribal markings. Each frequency spike formed a distinct visual pattern. It wasn't just sound, it was a message encoded in noise. But for whom? Jordan searched academic archives and stumbled upon a reference in a study on experimental subliminal acoustic language. The author, a scientist who went missing in 2006. The paper described an experiment on perceptually sensitive children where high-frequency noise triggered extreme emotional responses. One subject was named Maya. Shock hit him. Maya hadn't just existed, she had been part of something larger. An experiment? A project? A test? But someone knew he had uncovered this. At 3:42 a.m., his phone rang. Private number. He answered. Silence. Then the lullaby began to play. The same one. The one from the recording. Jordan fell to his knees. They knew where he was. They knew he was listening too. After the call, Jordan couldn't stay at home. Every sound felt like a threat, every noise a warning. He returned to the envelope from Red Hook. On the last page, handwritten, was a coordinate. Not an address, but a precise location beneath the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The next night, Jordan broke in. He slipped past security fences and descended through an old abandoned hatch. Below, he found a damp concrete hallway and rusted signs reading Level 3, Restricted Access, Infant Unit. The corridor ended at a steel door with a cracked viewing window. Jordan peeked through and froze. It was a dark room, padded walls, empty cribs, old monitors still pulsing dim light, symbols on the walls, the same ones he had decoded from the audio, and in the center, an old video camera, still on. He stepped closer. The screen showed a paused recording, a child's face in the corner of the frame, wide eyes. It was Maya. Younger, sitting, watching something off-screen. But in the camera lens reflection, someone stood behind her. Someone wearing a mask. He pressed play. The video began. Maya hummed the lullaby softly, but in the background, a metallic voice emerged. Code 1107, authorized. Level compatible. Test initiated. Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered. The camera turned on its own, now pointing at the door. At him. He ran. What was this place? A shelter? A lab? And how many Mayas had been through there? Jordan ran until he couldn't breathe, climbed out the hatch, crossed the yard, jumped the fence. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. At home, he locked every door. The RFID button, the one he'd found in 3B, was still in his backpack. When he pulled it out, he saw something. It was glowing. It had never done that before. He connected it to the scanner again. A new data set appeared. This time, it was video. The footage showed a different room. A child lying down, eyes closed, sensors on her body. In the background, a man's voice said, "She's listening. The signal is active." The child was Maya. The footage skipped in bursts. The girl crying, lights flickering. Then, total silence. Until Maya, now eyes open, looked straight into the camera. "She thinks I'm just one, but I am all of them." Jordan paused the video. This wasn't human, or rather, it was beyond human. Maya wasn't just a victim, she was the center of a phenomenon, an experiment with voice, frequency, and perception. The next day, Jordan tried to upload everything: video, audio, documents, but the platform crashed. His external backup vanished. Hours later, an envelope appeared under his door. Inside, a single note, Code 1107 executed. He knew what it meant. He shut everything down, disappeared. But the story didn't end there. Months later, a new anonymous video surfaced on the deep web. It was Maya's footage, and in the background, the lullaby. Over 300,000 people watched it before it vanished. And in dark forums, it said that at least 23 viewers began to repeat aloud, "I won't sleep. I won't sleep." The call was never silenced.